Looking for support, advice, and inspiration from moms just like you? Welcome to Mom Talks, where we delve deep into the struggles, messiness, and beauty of real #mom life. Here's your host, fellow mama and health and fitness expert, Sarah Denton.
We got through the holidays, and Kyle's family had all been in for the holidays, and they were all getting ready to leave, and we went to dinner. And I remember saying, like, offhandedly to his cousin, well, I guess the one good thing is this is the one family holiday with you guys ever that I haven't been on, like, a raging period. And we're cracking up about it. And then it kind of clicks of, oh, wait, how long has it been? Like, I can't be pregnant, right? That's over. That we've given up on that dream. And Kyle's cousin and I went to CVS and got a pregnancy test and went over to two of my best friends' house, and I peed on a stick and was pregnant.
Isn't it? Doesn't it always seem like it? They always say as soon as you stop trying, that's when it happens, because the stress.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I guess that's my suggestion. Don't give up. The pregnancy wouldn't have been so terrible had I not been so scared. Because coming out of a medical situation like that, I mean, I hadn't driven a car in 4 years. So here I am, like, afraid to tell anybody that I'm pregnant because I'm worried they're going to be like, how are you going to take care of a baby? Like, you can't take care of yourself. But I think everybody was so happy and thought, oh, maybe this will help, hopefully. And if it doesn't help Jenny's situation, we'll all just help her. We had kind of built those kind of relationships with friends. So that was good. The crappiest thing about my first pregnancy was that I had just turned 36, which means I was a geriatric pregnancy, or had, what else do they call it? Elderly gravata. Yeah, over 35, at least here. No, Kyle grew up in Minnesota, so all of his friends in Minnesota are just now having kids, or their kids are all 2 to 4. Here, though, all of my friends that I graduated high school with, most of them, their kids are off to college now. Yeah. And like, we just turned around our car seats. Which is fine. I'm not judging anybody on like when you should have your kids. But here I was old, and like I had to go to a perinatologist. So like a pregnancy specialist, and in your third trimester, but I also had gestational diabetes with Jack. But like 2 times a week, every week, I had to go to this doctor's office and either get a BPP or the ultrasound. I don't know, the one where it's on the screen, and then the one where it's on the little paper, twice a week. And every time they'd say, oh, you're here for geriatric pregnancy or elderly gravata, obesity, because I'm a size 16 to 18. So obesity and gestational diabetes. And then they take my blood pressure and say, oh, your blood pressure is a little high. And the one time I finally lost it and said, maybe if you would stop calling me old and fat every time I came in here.
Every time you went in there.
It would be
lower.
My
gosh, I can't even imagine. Gestational diabetes, how did that affect your pregnancy besides the doctor's appointments?
It was miserable because you stick your finger, it's like 7 times a day. And you know, that last trimester, there's so much extra blood in your body that you just bleed like crazy. Because when I first start doing it in like the second trimester, I guess, I'd poke my fingers and then, you know, you wipe them off and they're fine. They don't keep bleeding. Third trimester, there was blood everywhere in our house. Like everything I touched had blood on it. And it's not, because it's gestational, it's not completely controlled by what you eat. So even if I followed the diet to the letter, Jack could do something, you know, like, because we're dealing with testosterone in my body that I think threw stuff off. Like there would be times when I'd do everything exactly right and my blood sugar would still be super high. Yeah, it was awful. I would watch Olive Garden commercials and sob, and then rewind them and watch them again and sob. Like it was that level of like, I really wanted some pasta.
Oh my gosh, that's torture.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So none of it, I never got to do like the craving stuff. And they would tell you like, okay, for the gestational diabetes diet, eat this many cups of beans, this much like of green leafy vegetables. I'm third trimester. Like you're kind of like a walking gas bomb anyway. And it's like, I'm not going to eat 4 cups of beans today and a head of broccoli. I'm just not. I don't want to go through this birth alone.
Lift off.
Right? Yeah. So that was awful. Thankfully with Scout, I didn't have it. And I was just thrilled by that. But I got pregnant with Scout realized I was pregnant with Scout when Jack was 2.5 months old. So I had just maybe gotten like my first 2 nights of sleep. I was just starting to feel like, okay, I'm keeping this baby alive. like not like I wasn't wanting to, but just in that thing of like, I can do this. I can keep this baby alive and not be terrified. And I was a super jealous mom of Jack when he was a newborn, like newborn. I didn't really want anybody else to touch him. He was mine, which is not a great way to go into motherhood. But for whatever reason, I was pretty manic for Jack. I don't think I ever really let myself believe that he would make it, that we would both make it. I think I was at that level of fear.
After trying so long.
So when he got here,
it's like you finally get it and it feels like it could be taken away at any point. So you value it. Yes, I understand.
Right. Yeah. And I felt like up to this point, everything in life was like, oh, really, really good thing. Now, even worse thing than you thought could happen. Taken away sometimes. I mean, that's how the feeling. Yeah. And I just, I didn't want to let him go. And I'd just starting to loosen up and let other people really hold him more and leave the room, like not be in the same room with him. And then I realized I was pregnant already. I just didn't, I wanted a second baby, and I even kind of wanted two that were really close, but like 18 months apart close, not 2.5 months apart close. Right. Yeah. So, cause Scout ended up coming I think they would have been 11.5 months or 11 months apart, but Scout came early on top of it. So they're 10.5 months apart. Jack wasn't walking when I brought Scout home. I had not prepared him in any way to have a new sibling. I had this Moby wrap, like the stretchy ones, that I wore him on my chest for 10 months.
He wasn't ready.
We didn't really leave the house a lot because I still wasn't comfortable with driving with my baby. I mean, I did it a couple times when I needed to, but I didn't want to drive anywhere. And we literally, and I had a C-section with Jack. So with C-section, they cut through the muscle and everything. And it had just started to heal. And now I've got a new baby in here that's very active and feels like every time something would heal, she would ninja chop it. So it was a really painful pregnancy where I just laid on the couch with my baby in a Moby wrap, and we ate Cheerios and Puffs and watched Sesame Street for 10 months.
So then how did that go?
Until she was born.
You had to introduce a new baby. How did that go?
Honestly, I don't remember a lot. I do. I was there and they were alive and we were all taken care of. I don't mean it in an unsafe way, but gosh, I have a hard time remembering those days. What I do remember is Scout was like a baby bird in that she saw Kyle first, and that was mother for her, which I think as a family we all needed in a way, because I think as much as I had let go, kind of, Jack was still in my mind more than I knew it. He was mine. And I think there in the beginning, it was like, oh, good. Now you have one too. You have yours. I have mine. And not that we ever said that out loud or would ever dream of saying that out loud, because that's awful. Right. But I think that's kind of how it felt. So I think Scout definitely, for coming so much earlier than anybody would have planned on purpose, she definitely saved our family in that. In the beginning, I think we needed that. I think Kyle needed to know, okay, I've got to take care of this one a lot more than I did Jack, because Jenny still needs to be with Jack and he still needs to be with her. So me and Scout, we're going to be a little team here for a while. And it probably sounds bad, but that's, I think, what we needed at that time somehow. And then, I still adored Scout, but she was not crazy about me, the way she was about Kyle, which was really hard. And it was really hard for me to have time with Scout because I also had another baby that was bigger than her, could vocalize a little more directly that but now I'm sad because you're holding another baby and I want you, and I'm just a year old. Can you please put that baby down? That was hard, but we noticed when she was turning 1 that she still hadn't made any attempt at talking or making any sounds. So we started even worrying that she wasn't hearing, but she was. She was just they told us at Easter Seals that when they watch your kid from a double paned mirror, or that glass mirror thing. they would give her like toys to play with and then play audio stuff in the corners of the room. And they said she'd like look up from the side of her eye, like where the sound was coming from for just a second and like kind of snarl and then go back to her toys, which is so perfectly Scout. And I hear that, but I'm doing my thing
she just has
here
a mind of
right now.
from
So
the very beginning.
Yes. Yeah. But we started doing speech therapy, and our speech therapist, Miss Vicky, probably, you know, I don't know that I've ever really thought about it like this, but made a huge difference in our lives, because she would come to the house once a week, and I'd have both kids, and we'd sit on the floor and just focus on Scout for a whole hour. And I mean, Jack got to sit there and play too, but the focus was on Scout once a week. It was like seeing her slowly come to life a little bit. Yeah. And I remember the time, like anytime I would say something, Miss Vicky would point at me and say, Mama, Mama. And Scout would kind of look at me and then just keep going on. And one day it finally clicked for her that I was Mama, which you think all kids know. But I honestly think she must have thought Kyle was Mama, but she called him Daddy kind of thing. But it was like, she said Mama, and I'm like, yeah, smile, point at myself. And she's like, Mama, Mama. Right. And from then on, we've been really tight. But before then, I'm not sure she knew what my role was in the house. Like the Jack nanny.
Baby girls, it's a known fact, are many times, more often than not, drawn to their daddies, and boys are drawn to their mommies. It's just how it is. But it's amazing. And thank you for sharing that about her, because you and Kyle are both educators. So a lot of people would go into it, like they would approach you and they would think that your children would be as highly educated as, any baby or toddler or preschooler could be, because you're educators. And so the fact that, just that misconception.
Right. No. And I mean, we always try to warn people now that, like, oh, by the way, if you bring your kid to our class, my kids are probably going to be the worst behaved. And it's not that we don't make them mind, but they're here with both parents and their
kids always act worse at home. Yes.
Right. And it's like a job for them sometimes.
So then as they got older, well, when did you and Kyle decide to open Brainchild Creations? How did that come about?
Okay, so I can't tell a direct line, like a direct answer, without doing backstory. But basically, we inherited some money after the death of my dad and grandma. We could do a whole other podcast on doing hospice care when you're in your 30s and 40s with kids, because we're all
it's important for us
like
to know.
Or not. Yeah, so if you find out from one of your friends that their parent is going in hospice care, call me. I'll tell you what gifts they need and won't have time to ask you for. Anyway, we inherited money, but it came at such a huge emotional cost. And I'm sure there's a whole thing about inheritance guilt or that sort of thing. We were able to pay off all of our debt. And I mean, we had medical debt that was far beyond like my student loans or anything. Like it encompassed everything. And I didn't think I would ever be able to pay it off. Like I would die with that debt. And we were able to move to a better neighborhood and just pay for our house. Because at this point, I just didn't want to be in debt anymore. I just wanted to know, like, okay, this is our house. We'll always live here. We've moved 9 times in the 10 years Kyle and I had been together. I don't want to move anymore. Let's just make our life here. And he had a good job at the time. He was working for Anchor Industries. They're actually right in front of our building, our school program. And he really liked working for them, but he was traveling every other week for a week at a time. And even though Scout and I were good at this point, she needed daddy home. We all did. None of us were functioning well. And I was still really going through grieving stuff. And we just decided, okay, we've got this little bit of money left that we're trying to decide, like, do we invest in the stock market? Do we just put it in like college funds for the kids? Do we just have a savings account that we can't touch somehow? And we're just not that practical of people. We started looking like just kind of on a fluke, like, well, let's look at a franchise. Maybe we could work together. I found Challenge Island, and it was kind of magical because the CEO, the founder of Challenge Island, Sharon Duke Estroff, trying to think where I was going with this. She is also a writer. And I had read one of her articles in Good Housekeeping, maybe 6 months before, about grieving the loss of somebody with melanoma. And it was about her best friend.
I'm so sorry.
my dad died because of melanoma. So it was when I realized that I had read her article before, and this is the same woman, and she has this Challenge Island franchise that teaches kids STEM using everyday things.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So it's science, tech, engineering, art, and math. And that they do it all with like toilet paper rolls and everyday objects, and in this Survivor kind of inspired way. And that she came up with the idea, I can't remember. I think it was while she was like up late with one of her babies and watching Survivor. And she had been a teacher too and thought, oh, I could do this and, with my kids. And we fell in love with it and really quickly jumped in, bought the franchise, got the first franchise here in Southern Indiana and Kentucky, then kind of realized, okay, we've never run a whole business by ourselves. And we've still got 2 kids at home that were, I don't know if they were 3 and 4 yet. I don't think so. I think they were still 2 and 3. And it was, trying to figure out how we get out and do all of the work without our kids. And, we're having fun with it. And we were getting out, starting to really pick up momentum as far as going to schools and do different things. And then at about the time we started the franchise, one of my former students, oh my goodness, she was already 28. So, not a kid, had needed somewhere to stay. And we had always been close. So she came to live with us while she kind of figured out her next step, and she sort of filled in as a nanny for us. Well, then she finally figured out her next step and moved to California, and we didn't have a nanny anymore. We're doing all these cool things with other people's kids, and our kids are just a nuisance, basically, or at least more than we would want it to be. That too.
No matter what your career path is, like if it involves educating, or you can take all that and apply it to your children, but then by the end of the day, you're so tired from applying it to everyone else's children, and you have to find that balance, and that's tough.
Right.
And so, it's wonderful that you get to include your kiddos.
For sure. As much as like I drive now, I've talked about how I didn't drive for a while. I would realize that I had terrible anxiety, even in a school where I'd been before, packing up all the supplies, hauling them in from the car, up a flight of steps, to then put on a show basically for a few minutes to get the kids excited about a project they're working on, and then clean it all up, leave no mess behind in a teacher's room, haul it all back down the steps and in my car and get back home. Kyle could do that no problem. Not a problem at all. He loves that kind of thing. But I can't. Like by the time I get up that steps, and it's not even just a physical thing, like physical, emotional, like anxiety wise. By the time I get in that room, like I'm pretty spent. And I just kept feeling like we need our own place. Like we really need our own place. And we thought at first of just doing fully a Challenge Island place because it's got a lot of great things, like a lot of great activities for kids. We're both really creative people and rebels too. I think those just like natural born rebellious ones, not in trying to get in trouble, but just if this is the hard and fast rule, we're the ones that are like, but what about this situation? We're those people. We just kept thinking like there's so much more that we want to teach, or even not necessarily even teach, but allow kids to learn, just set up the stage for them to learn this stuff that has nothing to do with STEAM. That's just, being nice or being able to play and be daring a little bit. And all at the same time, my best friend from high school, she and her husband had bought Acros Gymnastics, and they had moved buildings for other circumstances and had an extra room that wasn't finished. It was basically a garage kind of building. It had 2 sliding doors. They're still there on our building, but there's a window there behind it and a wall, but none of that was there. It was just an empty concrete room. It had been a paint booth, I think, for an auto shop. At that point, they weren't ready to invest more money in the building, but they also wanted it closed off so they wouldn't lose heat and air through those doors. We figured it out how we renovated that space and put in the floors and the walls and lights and everything. And then we would be able to use the classroom.
And for those of you who are local,
that's how it came about.
If you have any potty trained, babies out there and you're interested in checking it out, this place is absolutely amazing. It was the first place that I took my now 3-year-old that she went once and I stayed with her. The very next time that I took her, she didn't even say goodbye. She was so excited to be there. How it's decorated and all the activities that are there for the kids. And not just that, but I mean, you heard Jenny, she talks about how creative that she and Kyle are, but I have been in there when they do different experiments and seen, some of their Facebook posts. It is so much fun and so inventive. And every time I see it, I'm like, how cool is that? That's how smart is that? So it's definitely, if you are local, worth checking out. I'm putting Lily in preschool, but only for 2 days starting in the fall, because I still want her to be able to go to Brainchild, because I see how essential that is to get that type of education and learning and experience and active play. I mean, you talk about it being a child-led learning center. That's just as important, in my opinion, as traditional schooling. So I like the fact of being able to balance. I love it. And I'm all about the colors, and it's so pretty.
Oh, thank you so much. And like we're not really trying to compete with the preschools as much as like supplement, I guess. And, for some people, they may choose like just our program or, and our program is multi-age. So at least in the afternoons, it goes all the way up to age 12. And we still have 2-year-olds in that group too.
Yes, it is.
Because it's important for kids to be able to work with kids that aren't their same age. It's really only in traditional school that you're only with people the same age as you. Like once you get out of school, it's never like that again. So it's, it's important. And we, don't have a lot of discipline issues that we really have to focus on once we make it clear that, okay, like you're a big kid. You've got to be careful around this 2-year-old, because if you push them, it's really going to hurt them. And then it's like, okay, so if you're not going to push, if you've got enough control to not push the 2-year-old because it will hurt them,
that's right.
Then you have enough control to not push anybody, right?
Enjoying the show? Become a patron and receive access to exclusive content and additional episodes. Visit Mom Talks Patron page today and help make motherhood matter.
And honestly, we rarely have issues. I want to say that we rarely have issues. I'm not really sure. I mean, we have 3 and 4-year-olds, so they're just learning how to define their space. So so we still have a lot of little things, but with the older kids, generally we don't. And even with the ones we have had where we've had to say, okay, we're going to have to wait a while before you come back. That is the way we want it put. Like, let's take a break and try to regroup. So, like this weekend, I need to reach back out to a couple parents and say like, okay, how's this kid doing? Are they ready to come back and try again? Because we still think about them all the time. And we think about this one really sweet thing they did. Please know that we don't think you're a bad parent. Like we're going through major issues with our son right now, behavior wise, in meanness and lack of empathy, like things where I'm like, oh my gosh, how did we do this? How did we miss it with our kid? So we're not judgy parents, or if at a moment we may seem that way because we don't understand something, like we're not judgy for long.
And so as far as, and
we really strive not to ever be
I've
that.
only ever felt welcome every time that I've been in your facility. And whenever, our moms group came in there, and I know that you've hosted for several local moms groups, different types. Everyone has only ever had nice things to say about you and about Kyle. And it's also representative in the kids and how excited they are to come back. I get to go see Miss Jenny and Mr. Kyle today. Yay! Okay, I'll get up and get ready. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready now. It's so cute. It really is. And also knowing that there's a mom, we had talked about this briefly during a previous conversation, but knowing that there is a mom's morning out program where you can drop your kid off for 3 hours. And if you're exhausted, you can go home and take a nap, or you can go and run your errands or do your own work, uninterrupted. But being able to do that with someone that you trust.
Right.
It's not always easy.
Yeah. And we're true. And we're out there on the north side, kind of the corner of 41 and 57. So there's a lot of neat little businesses popping up. Like there's the granola jar. They have really good lunch things. There's Farm 57. So even if it's out of the way, where like you're driving from Chandler or Newburgh,
well,
you can just go hang out somewhere for,
the building
for
too,
3 hours.
Parents can hang out.
Right. Yeah, we do have a little workroom up front that parents are welcome to work on their laptop or just scroll through on their phone or just not be touched by a child for a few hours. And parents are always welcome to stay too. So like, it was great having you that first day with Lily. I think we were actually shorthanded that day because they had gross eyeball issues. So I didn't want them there to spread it. And we only had a handful of kids, but you stayed. And so that was good because we like to always have 2 adults.
Right. And
girl, even that I'd have a migraine or something, or just, you know, if you've only got one adult and one kid has to poop, it throws the whole day off. But yeah, it was great. We got to know each other and you got to kind of see how we do things there. And it's hard to explain to people, I think, in the beginning, because it's just so much easier to show them, like come in and see what we do. And your first visit's always free. If you're just coming to like check it out, you can always come for free that first time and stay for a while and see how your kid interacts, how they love the gym. The biggest surprise for us was the gym because we didn't set out necessarily to do this in a gymnastics studio. It just kind of fell in our laps a little bit that happened to be the business that my best friend from high school bought. But it's made such a difference because it's this huge padded bouncy floor. And my husband, Kyle, moves all the mats around in crazy forts or mazes or obstacle courses. And the kids just get to run around and jump kind of like little maniacs, the older ones at least. The little ones are a little more timid in the beginning, but eventually they start jumping and doing things a lot. You know, we make sure to talk about like your head and neck safety. We haven't had anybody fall and get really hurt in like 7 months now. So that's great. And they get really brave. Like Lily's gotten really brave out there jumping from like mat
and
to
her
mat.
personality, especially after
really timid when she
starting
came.
Brainchild, it has she's blossomed. She's becoming her own little person, but especially because she's so shy and so timid. And because I have been able to stay at home with her, which means it's been, us. And so then having that to branch out with her, it has there's nothing else that can compare to it. Leaps and bounds. It has made a huge difference.
Oh, well, I love you think that we've been a part of that. I mean, it's been great. It's been especially great seeing the really little ones that come to us and aren't really talking yet, because one of our first students was just 2. She's going to turn 3 here this month. But so she was just 2.5, but she had been potty trained for 6 months. I always think to ask the mom, and I don't think I have yet, like trust us, like not that you shouldn't have. And I'm so glad that you did. But like we're in this big industrial building that definitely needs a makeover on the outside. And, you had to drive through a chain link fence that had some barbed wire on top and come through this, very rough looking parking lot. You come through the teal door. Once you get through the door, it looks really cute. And we're working all the time to try to make it cuter on the outside. But I just think your little girl was so tiny and seeing her grow so much because we haven't seen the kids for about a month now, and we just finished our first week of camp. And every one of our kids that would come through the door, we were just giddy to see them and be like, oh my gosh, look at how you changed over this month. Seeing how much one of our first kiddos is talking now because she's about to turn 3. They really feel like family. And we feel so incredibly fortunate to have had the the financial ability temporarily. We really probably should have invested some in something. But to be able to even take this chance and believe in ourselves enough, we're just so incredibly lucky here to be able to get to see everybody's kids all the time. And it just means an insane amount that people trusted us, that didn't know us, and that they'd come in and meet us and say okay, your kids are here. Here's my kids. and we trust you. And like, we take that so important, like so seriously that like, I feel like we probably make sure that everybody else's kids are taken care of before our kids, which is probably why my son's having some emotional issues lately. So we've been working on that this summer too, on trying to fix our own parenting, because I think we've spent too much at school and neglected some at home.
So whenever, like, you talked about,
this is
you're trying to do a little bit more of that this summer. How do you balance? Because especially as an educator or someone that is always on, and then, you're exhausted by the time you get home, how do you balance? But if you could give advice to moms out there, especially working moms, because mom guilt, we all know, is a real thing. And it's like, you either, no matter what, I don't care what you're doing, you still feel guilty about the other thing you should have been doing or could have, would have, should have. So what advice do you think that you would give?
So the balance part is really hard. It's better now in that, well, right now we're only doing half days. So we just go from 9 to noon through the rest of July. Whereas the rest of the year, we go from 8:30 to 3:00. And even though that seems like a short day with, I don't know, 30 or so kids every day, plus as a family, family business is great. But when you look back and think, I don't think we've spent a day apart in 6 months, the 4 of us. Sure. We're always together. You end up needing a break once in a while, just some space. But for us, we didn't expect to be as exhausted physically as we were at the end of each day. Like in January when we started, we'd get home at maybe 4:00 after cleaning up and everything. We'd get home at 4. And as a family, we would all just sort of fall wherever in the house and sleep. And we'd wake up. We did it multiple times where we'd wake up and it would be like 7:30. And I'd be like, is it morning? Is it night? When is it? And it's like, and now what do we do? We're not going to be able to get these kids back to bed. Right. We're all just wanting to stay up and watch TV, and we've got to get up and be at school again by 8:30. And at that point, I was putting like an incredible amount of pressure on myself to have like these Instagram worthy displays on each table and all these, Montessori inspired stations, because the kids are definitely going to, get into that like Instagram vibe. And no, they're not at all. And the moms or dads are dropping them off are just kind of like, okay, Jenny, yeah, that's pretty, but I need to drop my kid off. So I need to go. Yeah. So it's taken me probably, and in the beginning, I was really jealous of Kyle in the gym, because that's all the kids wanted to do. Nobody wanted to come to the classroom. And I'm like, we bought this $90 wooden toy from Germany. Why does no one want to come play in here? But eventually they realize that they can go to the gym anytime, like other than times when there's no adult in the gym, which is rare. But, occasionally we'll take a snack break and everybody has to come in the room. But other than that, usually if there's 2 or more kids that want to go in the gym, we open up the gym and one of us stays in there with them. Which definitely helps in discipline, because sometimes I think these little kids, their body is just like, I need to jump. I need to jump. I need to run. I need to kick a block, a foam block. So we have that where it's like, okay, are you getting antsy? Do you need to go in the gym? Yeah. Okay, let's go. But once they kind of realize that it's always there, that they'll get a play in there, then they come to the classroom a lot more. Yeah. But I mean, we're still like changing things, adapting things all the time at home. And like now we just kind of travel as a pack together, I guess, a lot. And we're trying to figure out how to not do that as much. And Kyle and Jack went and had boys' night tonight and went out, and Scout and I stayed home and cleaned the closet. And then tomorrow night, Scout and I will have a girls' night out, and Jack and Kyle will have a boys' night in. And then I don't know. It's not like that will be set in stone, but maybe next week we'll actually have a date night and that sort of thing. And I think the more that we build the program, we've become really close to a lot of the parents and their kids, of course. So I think the more we continue to build a community, the more we'll feel comfortable, not trust-wise, but we'll feel comfortable in just asking for help occasionally and saying like, hey, does anyone want this 4-year-old for a day? I just need a day. I think we'll find within this program, that it's not just like, I don't know, enrichment for kids, but
absolutely
kind of a source for parents to be able to lean on each other a little bit when, you know, life is so hard anyway. And then add kids, and
it's a different
especially
type of
little
hard.
ones. And I don't mean that little ones are harder than like teenagers or middle schoolers. My gosh, no, but it's all hard. And I think a lot of us we isolate ourselves so much when our kids are babies. I don't know that we mean to, but we do. And especially if you're a mom that you've moved, you're not from this area, where most of the people are from this area, so they already have their built-in friend group. That's hard. If you're having your babies 10, 15 years after everybody else you know had babies, then you're trying to become friends with people that are, you know, a decade or more younger than you. And that's awkward sometimes. But I like, we really do want to become more of a thing of like, this isn't just for the kids. Like, this is for the parents in a big way too. And even like, what we're noticing is we have much better days this summer because we get to start at 9, and we're going to reach out to our parents and be like, what if we just open up the program from 9 to 3 and you pick any 3 hours you need, and you just have to like let us know enough in advance so we can make sure that we've got an extra adult. If everybody is happier at 9 o'clock, you can still have your 3 hours. We'll just eat lunch with your kids.
No,
like, it's not a big deal.
That's a great idea.
We'd rather have that
especially
half an hour to
people
sleep.
that they drop their kids off that have doctor's appointments or, you know, I mean, any of those special things that come up that aren't every single time, but those special appointments that would come in so handy.
Yes. Yeah, because it doesn't always fit in, the morning session or the afternoon session. And one of the main inspirations for this whole business was me getting my annual pap smear with a 2-year-old holding onto one hand and a 3-year-old holding onto the other hand. And the doctor huffing because these 2 kids are in there. I'm like, the irony that it's this exam and you're annoyed by children here. Come on. But neither of us wanted them there. I didn't want them there that day either. It's just so happened they had to go. But yeah, like, unless you're really comfortable having that appointment with your kids, which great. But, yeah, like there's just times that come up that you need a few hours. The way that our program goes, try to keep enough spots open that if somebody, you know, a friend of yours that's never come before, something's come up, grandma's broken a hip or something like that.
Sure.
And you know that you can say, hey, if you need a break from the kids so you can go be with your mom, call Jenny and Kyle at Brainchild Creations, and, you know, they'll find a slot for you where you can drop the kids off for a little bit. And we want to be flexible like that, because as much as we want our consistent kids that come every day or every week, we also know as parents that that's a service that's been lacking in, I think, many communities. Like, we need a place where we can take our kids and not have to be there and know that they're safe, and not have to like track down a babysitter or a family friend, or, do you know what I mean? Like, that's great when you've got it. That's, of course, what you'd want. But if you can send your kid basically to a mix of, I mean, we're inspired by SEMO in the classroom and the jump trampoline places in the gym. And now we've got our outdoor area. So definitely hugely inspired by Wesselman's Playscape. It's not there yet. I mean, it doesn't look that good yet, but the kids will make that into something beautiful. But we're inspired by all those things. So the kids really love it.
I know from personal experience that I'm really happy.
Seem really happy.
And
really happy.
So, but if anybody wants to check that out,
good.
Jenny, is there anything that you would like to? You've already given so much advice, and you've already been so open and honest, and I appreciate and honor you for that. Thank you so very much for that. Is there anything else that you would like to, like advice or kind of closing statement that you would like to share?
Aviator classes for your kids when they're really little. So you see the faces that you're making at them, and they look super cute, and you look super cool when you put them in an outward facing baby carrier. So that's number 1. And 2, I'd say just be easy on all the other moms. Like, we're all struggling, like, all the time. I try to tell, like, I always think to myself, like, I should tell all the moms that knew me when I had 2 babies that, like, oh, I'm better now. I wasn't good with babies. I'm much better with kids, because that was not shining moment, trying to get out of the house with 2 babies for sure. So yeah, so there's people where I'm like, oh yeah, just tell your parents to drop your kid off at the lady that kept losing her baby at the park. That's me. I own a daycare now. Yeah. Yes. We're better now. And Scout is not insistent upon leaving the state line on her own. But yeah, I mean, I think just like, I don't know if it's the isolation from having a baby that I think for some of us brings us right back to that middle school girl mentality where you're like, this is my group and this is my only group and I can't be friends with anybody in that group, or they're all judging me and they're going to hate me because I'm not this level of crunchy, or I am more crunchy than them. And I think it's just like post baby brain, maybe. I thought it was just me, but I hear it from a lot of other moms now that our kids are turning 5. Like, oh yeah, like now I can think again like a normal person. But I mean, and I've told you this before that like, I definitely owe you an apology because when Stroller Champions came about, I was still into Hike It Baby. Like it was the reason I ever got out of the house ever, let alone drove somewhere and then hiked and then trusted myself to get 2 babies back in car seats and drive home safely. Like it was like physical therapy, occupational therapy, emotional therapy, everything for me. And when Stroller Champions started, instead of embracing it and thinking like, wow, there's another one, I can do this too. It was like, why are they trying to steal everyone from our group? We can't be both. If you go over there, you can't come back here. And I mean, I don't know that I verbalized this to people saying like, oh, I wasn't like the major player in our person in Hike It Baby to where I was enforcing any rules. So I don't want it to sound like that, but just in my mind, those were my thoughts where when mutual friends would say like, oh, come to this. And I like in my head, be like,
and again, in all fairness, I totally understand. And I mean, especially when you've found that thing that has helped you to cope through such a hard time, you automatically are going to feel loyalty to it. So there's no need to apologize for that. I totally get it. But hey, when I made Stroller Champions, I think I told you this too. I didn't even know there was a Hike It Baby here. And then on top of that, I was like, well, hey, this is great because now people that don't need the strollers, they go to Hike It Baby. People that need strollers, they go to Stroller Champions. They complement each other.
Right. And I don't know that any of us meant to be as silly as we were with it or realize what we were doing. And it was also about the time that like all of our kids were starting to get involved in things. And I mean, really shortly after that, I ended up taking care of my dad and grandma for a summer. So I never got a chance. I think eventually I would have gone to one because several of my friends kept telling me like, you've got to come to this. And then I just never had that opportunity and then was so busy afterwards. But so maybe that's it, that I feel like I never gave it a chance, but part of it was life got so complicated. But I wish that I would have gone through the kids in the baby stage and everything and not being so afraid of moms that weren't like me. Like I just felt intimidated by everything. The baby wearing thing. Like I knew how to do the Moby wrap and that worked for Jack and I, but I think he was only supposed to be in it until I was like 3 months. Or maybe 6 months. He was in that thing. Like, I mean, I think if I've got it out now, he'd probably come running to get back in it. But it wasn't one that you could hike in. That's a wrap for a 8-month-old that just wants to lay on you on the couch and eat Cheerios off your chest. But I wish I would have like reached out more to like the people that do all the like funky wraps, that like look cool, and done more of that and got to know more of the crunchy moms in the beginning, because now I feel like everybody I talk to, I give them the same apology.
We always talk about how
insecurities I have about myself.
The reason that we were so competitive with each other was because we were so insecure. Well, think about it. We get pregnant and our bodies completely change and they're never the same, and our hips are always wider. Our boobs are always saggier. Our stomach is always looser, no matter how many crunches you do, compared to what it was, pre-baby, or how it could have been pre-baby. And once we have those babies, we're just like, we feel the same feelings of insecurity that we had as middle school and teenagers. So then it goes back to, I need someone to talk to about these things that are happening,
right.
But I feel so insecure. Yeah. Will anybody like me? And every single woman that I talk to feels the same way.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Well, because I think honestly, like I've mentioned before, like how hard middle schoolers are, like middle school teachers, like if you ever meet a middle school teacher at a bar or something, like just buy them a drink, like, and just be like, you've earned this. Or, you know, the whatever, if they're not drinkers, but, you know, like middle school teachers, they deserve a lot because they're all kids that are like, I don't know what's happening with my body and I need to talk to somebody, but I don't know how because I'm super insecure. And I think that's how moms feel after we have babies. We're like, we just don't know what's going on. And mine wasn't like, oh, it doesn't matter how many crunches I've done. Like I haven't done a crunch since, I don't know, ever. It's just never been on my priority list. And I'm not knocking it. But like I kind of had the post baby body pre-baby. So that wasn't my concern. My concern was I couldn't get myself out of a chair because my abdominal muscles had been cut through twice in the same year. I couldn't do anything without like nearly peeing my pants or leaking somewhere or I don't know. I mean, there were just so many other body things. Yeah. And if all your friends, like if their kids are now in high school and college, like they just think it's comical now that you're coming to them where they're like, yeah, I would say the other thing is definitely make friends during your pregnancy that are going to have babies around the same time. Like one of my friends, we were in the same baby class and we have crossed paths now for years through Hike It Baby, through just different things. But I really wish we would have cemented that from the very beginning of like, okay, we're both having our babies and around the same month. Let's cement this friendship until we just can't stand each other because I need somebody to talk to about parts of my body that I can't see. But from what I can feel,
I didn't know
it's
that
pretty weird.
aliens overtook our bodies and changed them and morphed them. I never believed in that. But after babies, yes.
Yeah. And I mean, as great as Kyle and I have always been as far as just needing each other and always being like, this is it, we're great. I didn't think we'd survive the first month of Jack's life. Like I really would Google things like my baby's spitting up white stuff, but you know, he's 2 days old. Is this okay? And can you get a divorce immediately after having a baby? Like it was scary. Like it was not a great month for us. And I really wish I would have had a friend at the time that was also a new mom that was also like, yep. Apparently we're going to hate them for a couple of weeks.
I understand.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's my advice. Make friends while you're pregnant that are going to have babies the same time as you. Get aviators for your baby and try not to give into your newly middle school brain. Like keep telling yourself, I'm an adult.
Well, Jenny,
I know
thank you so much for joining me.
They're all good people.
Our first Mom Talks podcast.
You're welcome.
And
yay!
Real quick, if anybody is interested, and I will have show notes underneath the show. If you go to the website, you will be able to find links, connections to the Brainchild Creations, and that way you can learn a little bit more about Jenny. You can see some of the pictures and the videos and her contact information. But please, if you have questions or comments, feel free to comment. There will be a comment section where the podcast is and also on our YouTube channel. There will also be a chance you can just email me anything at sarah@momtalkspodcast.com. I believe that is it. Jenny, thank you so much. Having you with us is amazing and truly inspiring, all the ups and downs. And for those of you that want to stick around, there will be an extra segment where we are going to get into more about the medical issues that Jenny had, the causes of them, and how they can kind of manifest. So please check that out. That will be available to anyone who is a patron, and that link will be available on the website as well. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful evening. We will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Mom Talks. Your support is invaluable, so please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. For even more extras and bonus content, be sure to visit Mom Talks Patron page.